Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folarin. Hope you had a great weekend. Well, for the newly appointed service chiefs, it's quite busy because as we speak, they are in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital, led by the chief of defense staff. Yeah, chief of defense staff. So, and my guest this morning is Mr. Tony Ofeyeto, DG International Institute of Professional Security. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you got it.
Did
Good
I mix
morning,
anything
Uncle
up?
Roy.
No, I didn't. There you go.
You did it.
Because you're always watching me on that. Glad to have you, Tony.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Now this shows the kind of seriousness of purpose you would expect of the military, and this is very, very top brass. So they must indeed be, showing, as it were, the colors that this is how it's going to be. But they are up there now. How important would you say their meeting is in all of them meeting together in one place, which I imagine won't happen quite as often as that. But starting off now, we have all of them in one place in Borno, in Maiduguri, which is arguably the theater of the insurgency in the north.
It shows some level of takeoff commitment. And I'm very, very cautious of my choice of words. Takeoff commitment because we expect that the commitment should be an ongoing one. It should not be a dying one. And from the pedigree of the current service chief, I'm not in doubt that they would do better than their predecessors.
Okay.
Yes, I'm not in doubt about that. I know that they've seen the strength and the weaknesses of their predecessor. They've also seen the pedestal and the scale with which the average Nigerian will be measuring them. Knowing full well also that they are also core professionals in their calling. It's a good one, except for the fact that I would only advise them to understand that wars are first of all, lost or won first in the boardroom before the theater of war. That simply means that I think they should de-emphasize media hypes, media publicity and all those stuff. Withdraw, do a proper strategy that is very covert, the type of strategy that does not easily leak to the press, the type of strategy that the adversary does not lay hand on very easily. Because that happened to be one of the weaknesses of the previous service chiefs, to the extent that it was easy to hear of ambushment, hear of attacks of hard targets and all those stuff like that. So if they are able to marshal out their strategy in the boardroom, if they are able to also have a professional selection as to those that will execute those strategy, especially when it comes to the level of implementation, and with the political will from the presidency, I expect that they should do excellently well. But having said so, if they are able to do everything, get the strategies right, if Mr. President is reluctant at approving some of the strategies, it will be a tall order for them to achieve their desired goals and aim.
Because he is the commander-in-chief.
Yes, because he's the commander-in-chief. So I think that is where we will now have to plead with Mr. President to look at these people as people he has trusted to be able to do this job. And that means that he should, as much as possible, allow them to do the job to the best of their knowledge, devoid of politics.
Okay.
And because Mr. President is is in government, and is also a politician. In other words, he's playing politics and is also in governance. So he must be able to allow these people that he has chosen to execute security to do it. I've always been a strong advocate that...
Sorry, Tony. I would almost, never mind, I would sort of take it for granted until proven otherwise that they won't have a problem with the commander-in-chief, because when he himself was introducing them to us, following his signing them, taking them on, swearing them in and all of that, he had appeared on Twitter, and therein he had said that they are aware, as you've just said, of the task before them, and as for me, the commander-in-chief, they can take my backing 100% for granted. So to that extent, he said it, until something else happens, I would take it for granted. But let me relate to something else that's important that you said, and that's the former chiefs. You spoke about the way they communicate with the public, and you hope that this would be different.
Yes.
Now, I imagine the challenge is the balance, because there is a right to know, and you're so right, a lot of people have complained in the past that they are talking far too much more than they would appear to be doing, and they would want them to stop talking. That is, let the military chill on communications. But that's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because the people also have a right to know.
It is your responsibility as journalists to find out. It is the responsibility of military at intervals to bring out formal information at that level. But when you talk about strategic information, for example, we are going to launch an operation.
Yeah.
For example, we just acquired 25 Jetta fighters and all those stuff like that. We just got delivery of 40 arms, what do you call it, RPGs, arms and ammunition and all those stuff like that. As far as some of us are concerned, they are not meant for public consumption. They are not. Yes, when it comes to psychological operation, there are some information that at that level you give us basically because you want your adversary to operate on it. And it is basically for a particular purpose. Now, those ones are at intervals. But in a situation where you know, what happened was that the service chief, the former service chief, they were struggling to be retained in office. And in an attempt to want to show that we are still capable of doing this thing, they divulge too much of information, too much of strategic approaches that eventually, you know, was at the advantage of the adversary.
Okay.
You understand? Because if I know your strength, for goodness sake, you know, even if I'm weak, having known your strength, I will know where to avoid.
Even though I would have thought that them being consummate professionals that they are, even though they're no more in office, they would have been aware of what you're saying.
Yes, and that's why I said, you see, when there's a conflict between politics and security, politics is for personal gain. Always remember that at the back of your mind. That political whatever is for personal gain. Personal interest comes first in politics.
In Nigeria.
All over the world, not just in Nigeria, all over the world, except for the fact that you could have some level of, maybe some level of subjectivity in some climes and all this like. But there is no, everywhere, whether America and the like, personal gain is very paramount in politics. So, but that's not the issue. The issue is when you mix politics with security, you will discover that because the level of our national patriotism is still very low, it becomes a tall order to be able to implement security to the letter. Now, also when you bring in ethnicity and religion into it too, it becomes even much more difficult to implement. That's why we said, Mr. President should allow these people to do their job, because there are decisions that they will take at strategic level that will affect religion, that will affect ethnicity, that will affect politics. It's a decision that is born 100% out of security strategy. I think Mr. President should be able to block his mind out of it.
I think you're touching on what for many will be like the crux of the matter, and this protracted engagement we've had with Boko Haram. I don't think there's been very much doubt that the army, the Nigerian armed forces, are capable of, you know, achieving a set objective.
They are capable.
But there's always been the confusion, especially as it relates to Boko Haram, maybe other insurgencies, but Boko Haram, of them not being seen as the outright enemy. Outright is a very important point. So in other words, Komenekun, just don't look anywhere. Boko Haram is the enemy. Now, complications that you are alluding to, such as we also have on our hands now the concept of reformed and reintegrated former Boko Haramists. You don't laugh, Tony, it's a very serious matter, because a lot of people don't quite understand it. But we are given to understand that that is the rub. That which you say you don't understand is the rub. So a bloody civilian like me, we're being told that you can't see Boko Haram as a total and absolute enemy without any qualification. And that is what you are probably saying. They're going to have to be working on eggshells in certain instances, right?
Yes, of course.
This will be complicating the whole matter.
You see, no matter how complicated it is actually the absolute solution. And I'm very absolute about my choice of words. It's the absolute solution. If the president must make this service chief to succeed, they would have to work, and take decision irrespective of whose oil is God, as it is now. Because whether we like it or not, we don't have to be pretentious that these are major factors that have been sustaining terrorism in this country. Ethnicity, religion, nepotism, corruption. These factors together are the factors that those that are sponsoring terrorism have been feeding on and have been fattening on. So if the service chiefs now identify that, look, we need to get rid of all this, Mr. President, can you kindly allow us to do our work? And all we expect is, let Mr. President just say, please, irrespective of whose oil is God, whether it's governor, a minister, a vice president, even whosoever has been fingered or has been linked to any of these terrorist groups, and these people are saying, look, we need to deal with this thing once and for all, or whatever religion or ethnicity that is involved, and they think they have the strategy to be able to implement security that it will quieten this whole thing, Mr. President should allow them to do it.
I imagine from what you're saying, if the allegation that there's a political input, that is from the political class in Nigeria into Boko Haram, for example, if that is indeed a fact, how I imagine that's going to be, necessarily muddying the water for a professional that just wants to get his job done. It's not quite the same, and we've been told this quite often. It's not the same as fighting an external force. If America decides that somebody is an enemy of America, if Nigeria decides somebody is not part of the fight will be different, I believe, is what you're saying, from what we have on our hands now. So I don't know how politics is not going to be part of it, to the extent that we are not willing to be, unconditional about this whole matter. So you see, it looks like it's a suffer approach.
And
that
you see,
would be prescribed in this kind of a situation. And that's a problem.
Don't forget that the terrorists are intelligent set of people. Those people you see on the field are actually just the operatives. They are not the strategists. They are not the think tank. There's what we call the sleeper cell. The sleeper cell are extremely intelligent. They belong to different groups. They are also involved in government and all those stuff. You remember Jonathan was bold enough to come out to say Boko Haram was in his administration. The question we've not been able to answer is whether they have left this administration. Because PDP and APC, they are all merged together, and as far as some of us are concerned, it's just a change of nomenclature and all those stuff like that. Most of the personnel...
Those two bodies won't agree with you. Let's
leave those issues, whether they will agree
PDP
or not.
PDP will say, they were different from APC.
I can prove it to you that
we're different from PDP.
Half of the people in each of those parties are all the same, paddy. But we are not talking about those political things now. But you see what I was saying? There's nothing to prove now, for example, that if you look at the issue of terrorism financing, where a Nigerian was apprehended in Dubai, prosecuted in Dubai, convicted in Dubai, and it's all fingered towards Nigeria. Today, we have not been able to identify those that are at the Nigerian soil that aided and abetted the young man, or those people rather, the three guys that were convicted in Dubai. The question is why? Is it so difficult for us to be able to fight this whole thing? It's a product of the political will. If the government is ready to do the needful, it costs the government next to nothing. They have the expertise, they have the wealth, the resources, and they have everything it takes to be able to get all this information and get those that are involved. And that's why I said, look, for me, I'm not going to hold these service chiefs responsible as it is. Having seen their pedigree, having seen the fact that these people are capable of doing the job, and of course, the takeoff enthusiasm shows to me that these people are ready to do the job. It is the president now that will determine their fate vis-a-vis achievement. If all the recommendation, they will not tell us the recommendation. It's not, we are not expected to know what they have told the president, but we will see the result. We will see the result. If Mr. President says, there are two ways Mr. President talk. Those people that work in presidency, they will know that if Mr. President means with red biro, it's different from when he means with green biro. It's different from when he means with black biro. There are two different interpretations to it. The same thing, when Mr. President is talking in public, is different from when he's talking to them. As service chief in the boardroom. Do you understand? So he can come and play to the gallery in the public. It doesn't make any difference. But what some of us are interested in, what specific instruction is he giving the service chief? Because they will only go by his instruction as it is.
Indeed, and that's a point that you made make quite forcefully, that I have heard before by former military officers, high-ranking military officers who are not in service anymore, that you guys need to, if you can, find out what exactly are their orders.
Very well.
What exactly are their orders? Before you go on, it was a bit derisory. Before you guys go on television and start blowing grammar, you don't know what the orders are. And that seems to be a point that you're making.
Yes, because if the order is as usual, they will achieve the same result with Buratai and his team.
But you just said, you said that you are quite optimistic, or did you say you are sure that this service chief's team will achieve a better result than their predecessors?
I'm not in doubt about that. I'm not in doubt about that. I'm not in doubt. In short, I believe so much in their competence. I believe that they will do. Look, as Nigerian, when you are given such mantle of leadership, and it is in the heat of crisis, every average professional wants to make sure that he is able to excel more than his predecessor. And that's just the truth. Apart from the fact that these guys are qualified guys. But the person that actually dictates play the piper, dictates the tune. And that is Mr. President.
Indeed.
So it is Mr. President we expect now to give them the required support. If Mr. President says, for example, within 6 months, let's give them a timeline. Within 6 months, I want to give you the finance you need. I want to allow you the freedom you need. I want to automatically approve all your strategic approach towards fight against insurgents. In 6 months' time, if you did not achieve this, having given you everything, resign. Period. Specific.
Exactly. That's something.
Do you understand?
That's something that sort of time juncture assignment, so that you can evaluate how well they are doing. That's something I don't know that we've had in the past, and that people have called for.
And that's what we expect Mr. President to do. Because we are talking about protection of lives and property. We are talking about protracted ailments that is not incurable. It is curable. The vaccine, the antidote is on the table of Mr. President. It's for him to administer that vaccine. As far as some of us are concerned, he is the person that will inject it.
I see. Well, I guess you're right. And most people, because they are new, are going to be looking towards them for something different, especially as it took us a long time to get these service chiefs.
Yes,
there are those
and
who
for
are
the
saying
terrorists,
that they should have changed 2 years ago.
Let me say something very quickly. I expect that they should know. By now, those of them that are coming in as the new service chiefs should know that the terrorists will try to make statements. It's part of the signature and strategy of terrorism all over the world. When there is change of baton, psychologically, the terrorists will want to psychologically demoralize you. Number one, they will look at your hard target, and they will go to that hard target. Whether they succeed or not is not the issue. They will venture into that hard target to tell you that, look, Your predecessor did it, they did not succeed. So don't be too sure that you will succeed. So it is now left for them as the new service chiefs to identify all this and be able to be more proactive than the terrorists, because they will attack and they will keep attacking. They will not relent to break them, to demoralize them, to discourage them. They are now to sit down, strategize, and do what we call, taking the battle to the gatehouse of the enemy.
Okay, let me take Mr. Joshua in Irewolide. Good morning, sir.
Ogiori, good morning, and good morning to your guest.
Yes,
Ogiori, I appreciate everything that he's saying, and I want to toe the line of putting the responsibility for the success of these new service chiefs on the table of Mr. President. I think he has said it very well. The president should take responsibility for their success or failure. I have read through their pedigree and whatever. These people are qualified. They can do the job. It's no rocket science. But he has pointed out that security already has been politicized. So how do you want these people to walk through that landmine of not stepping toes, of somebody not calling the brakes on? Give them the full support. Give them the power to perform. Ogiori, the military has monopoly of power. They have monopoly. Monopoly. We have monopoly of the air. I understand the terrorists might want to bring down their whatever, but we still have the monopoly. So if Mr. President gives them the support that they need, it's time. They've wasted enough. Let them be wasted. Clear them off, please.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. Joshua. Again, I'm going to go back to the president having said directly to us, to his service chiefs, and then to us citizens, that they can take my support for granted. I mean, I just need to hear that. And Mr. President said that. Now that you are explaining it and qualifying what that means, it's good, it's good. At least you are all under the umbrella of what the president said. And I take due note, Tony, of what you said, that there are different venues.
Yes,
and depending on what venue he was speaking at, but I imagine that the most important one is the one you said directly to us. No president wants to be seen to be saying something that you can't go to the bank with, as our people say. If the president said it and everybody from primary 3 to everybody else can quote what the president said. The president said, I have your back, service chiefs, this time around. I mean, I had it this time around, because that might indicate that they didn't. No, that's not what I'm suggesting. But he has said to us on the occasion of the arrival of these new service chiefs that I've got your back. I expect you to do the needful. Nigeria, you already know what Nigeria expects of you, and by implication, he's trusted them to do the job. Good morning, Mr. George. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Uncle Yeri, and good morning to Tony.
Good morning.
Uncle Yeri, Tony has spoken my mind this morning in all its entirety. I virtually ask nothing to us. What I want to appeal to you, Uncle Yeri, is this. This particular edition of PM, please package it and send it to Mr. President's right-hand man, Femi Adesina. I should play it for Mr. President to listen. Please, plead with him.
I hear you.
Should play this edition for Mr. President
I hear
to
you.
listen.
For all you know, Femi Adesina might be watching. I hear you, but thank you very much, sir. I hear you. Thank you very much. And that is his own comment. Say, look, he said, you've said, quite frankly, everything he wanted to say. So he's not going to spend our time. I wouldn't say waste. Not going to spend our time. But again, this is something that he has brought out there. How much, and this question has been asked in different contexts as we have done these programs, are you sure that those that matter are hearing or watching or getting to view these programs? That is what Tony is saying there.
I think my own answer to that is try to abuse the government in such a manner that the governance seems threatened. then you will know whether they have been watching or not.
I get what you mean. I get what, and from that, with that formula,
So with that,
formula, you get the impression that if they're not watching directly, there are people who are watching on their behalf.
Very well.
Because
So,
one step, in one kind funny way, we'll get inquiries.
You will be invited.
There will be inquiries.
You will be invited.
Okay, I'm going to take a break now. We'll continue. Tony is still in studio with us. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back.
Contain the with breaking.
Welcome back, and still with Tony Ofoyeton in the studio as we move on to our next subject, which is, it takes us to Benue State, where 19 victims, I see here, 19 victims of child trafficking have actually been received by, that means they were rescued and have been received by the Benue State government. Well, we have on the line remotely, I think it's, whether it's Skype, whether it's Zoom, in any case, okay, there you can see. I can see my friend there, Teva Akase. He's the CPS, Chief Press Secretary. Good morning, Teva.
Good morning, Yuri, and Happy New Year.
Indeed, compliments of the season. I'm in studio here with Mr. Tony Ofoyeton, and it's cheering news that at least 19 of victims of child trafficking have, been rescued and indeed have been handed over to the government. Give us the background to that, please.
Well, the background can simply be linked to, this is not a new thing. It's been going on, and we wonder what pleasure some of these people derive in luring young persons to Lagos, Rivers, and other states where they promise them gold and silver. I mean, this has been a trend.
Okay.
So.
Sorry, Teva. We're talking about because the locations you mentioned there. This is domestic. It's not. It doesn't have an international content, or does it? When we hear about child trafficking.
Well, it has an international connection as well, but not this particular case. Of course, Nigerians are being trafficked beyond the shores. Yes. Of this country.
Yeah.
But this case is domestic, and we think that those who are behind this have accomplices. They have it's a network sort of. It's a syndicate that has to do with people who reside outside the state, who have people within here who help them to recruit. If I may use that word, some of these young people and take them out of Benue State, and perhaps Benue is not the only state that is perhaps Benue is not the only state suffering this, but it's rather unfortunate. How they do it, I do not have any idea.
Teva, sorry to interrupt you. The Benue youth that have been trafficked and that have been rescued and now are back with the authorities, and I imagine will later on be going, to their families. What exactly was the objective of their being trafficked? You've just explained that this is domestic. Is it into domestic work, house girls, house boys, or what were they being trafficked for? Do you know?
That's what we gathered. That when the people who traffic them come to them, they make them promises that I will take you to Lagos, where your life will change, you will make a lot of money, and when they take them there, they subject them to all manner of servitude. I mean, they give them all odd jobs to do. Some they do a lot of things that are dehumanizing. So. All the promises that were made at the point they were contacted become a mirage. So that's what we gathered.
Child trafficking.
A lot of
this child trafficking, it cuts across the sexes, right? Are there boys and girls involved?
Well, the 19 that were repatriated to Benue are all boys.
Okay.
And yes, the motive we gathered from them is that they were promised a lot of good things, good life in the city, and when they got there, all that they were promised became fake, and they had to survive. They had those people. Some of them were even left stranded, and so they had to join bad company, and I think this is what results in some of the criminal cases that we have in the city. So a young person is taken from his parents and promised. Sometimes they use their peers, they use their friends to tell them, look, this person is in Lagos, this one is in Abuja, this one is in Rivers, and is making a lot of money, so why don't you come and join us? But when the person gets there, he discovers that all that promise was just to get him to come and suffer for one person who makes the money.
I see.
He does all the odd jobs and makes all the money for the person.
Okay, Tony, finally, how did these youths come to be rescued? Do you have anything on the procedure? Were people on the trail? Did parents complain in Benue, setting off investigators? We just have jumped to the end of the story where happily 19 of them are back home now. But how that process of retrieving them, can you share any light on that?
Governor Samuel Otom some time ago was in Lagos State when Tribune gave him an award. And he met with the Benue community in Lagos State. And one of the appeals he made was that Benue indigenes who live in Lagos should help the state to stop child trafficking. That is one of the problems his administration is facing since he came on board. So that appeal was well received by Benue indigenes in Lagos State. And I think that it's one of the results that we've got with this discovery.
Okay.
An organization, an NGO actually did the magic by, when they got a tip-off, they followed it up and discovered a number of these young persons. And that's when they were able to get them and involve the security agencies to bring them back and hand them over to the state government.
Well, it's cheering news that we got some of them back, as you indicated. There are more because this has been going on for quite a while. But I want to thank you very much, Teve Akasi, for bringing us up to speed on this, shall we say, happy resolution, at least even if it is partial. Thank you very much once again.
It's my pleasure.
All right then. Okay, I'll take a break and then we'll come back and we'll continue because we now want to go on to a drug bust. But let's leave you with a package.
Aim of curbing illicit drugs from entering Nigeria, the men of the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency arrested 4 drug traffickers coming in from Brazil at the E-Wing arrival of the Buritala International Airport. These arrests made on the 27th of January by the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency remained the largest single seizure in Nigeria in 15 years. One of the suspects who trafficked 26.850 kilograms of cocaine, estimated at 30 billion naira, denied any knowledge of the substance in her baggage.
I don't even know the quantity of the blankets that he gave me because I took Uber to Airport Street and I boarded. Getting to Nigeria, the NDLEA, they controlled me, and that's how I come to know the things that are inside when I was in their main office,
Another suspect said he was paid 4,000 euros to swallow heroin from Italy to Nigeria.
Honest with you, I don't really have much idea about the gravity of the offense and the whole thing because I really don't know much about it. It's just my first time, and if for my entire life, I don't even know. I don't even have idea of different drugs, and I've not seen it.
The commander NDLEA here in Lagos said, with a new chief executive officer, the agency is ready to stop the inflow of illicit drugs into the country.
The air transport to come in with that quantity of drug, not through cargo but as checked-in luggage, is huge. So that is I think the arrest, I think in the last 10 years, is the single individual arrest made by a passenger through the airport.
With this, it is evident that the fight against drugs requires effective policy from government, while constantly educating the populace on the dangers of illicit drugs. Ademola Lawrence, TVC News, Lagos.
Okay. Well, with that story, we have Mr. Lanre Ikpiminsho, former Director General of NDLEA, on the other end. Good morning, Chief Ikpiminsho. We have Mr. Lanre Ikpiminsho, former Director General. Okay. Good morning, Chief Lanre Ikpiminsho, former DG NDLEA. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Falarin. How have you been?
Very well, sir. Very well, sir. Thank you very much for making the time to join us. You've changed, your appearance has changed a fair bit since we used to, talk together on this program when you were Director General. And now you've left.
TVC was quite supportive of our operations and activities.
That's right.
Thank you very much once again.
Our pleasure. Now, this is going on now. We are hearing between the time, that period of your service and now, I wonder if, what would be your assessment as to whether it is getting better or it is really very much an uneven keel, or is it getting worse in terms of these busts? Okay, I think, Mr. Chief Lanre Ikpiminsho, can you hear me?
Yeah, I heard the parts that wants to clear the situation. What is the situation after I left office?
Yes, I wanted to ask if it is as bad as when you were in office, or if it's pretty much the same that we are hearing about this bust. 4 arrested, 27 kilos of cocaine. I remember that perhaps marijuana, Indian hemp, seemed to be more of your headache at the time. But tell me, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Uncle Yori Folarin. I'm happy you have been following. I'm happy you have been following the operational developments in NDLEA. It's unfortunate, but I must tell you that it's from 2011, it took some frightening dimensions in NDLEA. You will recall that we were able to cleanse up the place by weeding the place of those we thought were bad eggs, and were justified. Because after removing those we suspected were aiding the barons, we noticed that others were afraid of losing their careers. Now, the last administration in NDLEA appears to my mind to be the worst. It was actually going back to those days, those dark days of barons saying that, why are you going to Thailand to buy drugs. Why don't you go to NDLEA? Thank God the governments listened to voices of reason, and we have General Mohammed Buba Marwa in charge today. I have worked with him. I had the privilege of working with him as a member of PASEDA, Presidential Advisory Committee on Elimination of Drugs. And I found him a first-class Nigerian. When it comes to his integrity, he's a first-class administrator. He has the right passion to be able to win this war for Nigeria. He had come in at a time that Nigeria needed somebody like him to be in charge. And our international partners were also getting tired of relating with us. So I tell you, without any fear of contradiction, that things went very, very bad for the officers. No form of welfare, no operational tools, no care at all. And Nigeria suffered for it.
Okay.
We're still taking stocks.
Indeed, because what you just said is pretty heavy duty. That it was almost like a joke, as you said. People say, why are you going out to buy drugs? The level of corruption in NDLEA was such that it was hyperbolic almost, that why don't you just go to NDLEA to get the drugs? And you've just related to how quite frankly, it was almost comatose from what you're describing. The motivation was low. They didn't have equipment. In short, they just couldn't do their job and appeared to have excelled in corruption, which you've just said caused people to, our international partners to become quite worried about dealing with us. But you say with the coming on board of Buba Marwa, that brighter days are ahead for doing the job that NDLEA was set up to do. That's what I'm hearing from you now. That we can look forward to better times.
Very well. We can look forward to better time. Yes, he has the right integrity. He has the right integrity to fight the war. He has the passion. He's somebody who cares very much about failure. He doesn't want his name associated with failure. He has the kind of respect at every level of governance that call for assistance for the agency. If you see the way he has moved for the past 2 weeks, he has been able to do a job of almost a year.
Okay, one moment.
In turning the place around.
Okay, one moment, Chief Kwimicho, because I also have Tony Ofoyeto, a security consultant in the studio, and you've just heard, many people might have been surprised, especially if they haven't been following NDLEA and its function, to hear the former DG say boldly that it was very, very bad for the agency. What was because it's all about drugs. I remember when Dr. Chief Kwimicho was in office, part of his whole routine was trying to find out the producers, burning farms, and all of that. What's your understanding? Because it also is an aspect of security, isn't it, Tony?
No, it's interwoven because it takes some substance for anybody to commit a crime, especially heinous and grievous crime.
And so there's a lot of money involved.
Yes, a lot of money involved. It's a crime on its own, peddling drugs and all those stuff like that. But I think I will agree with him. If you remember NDLEA, your mind goes straight to the era of Kwajafa. In those days, you are talking of they had gone NDLEA boss. I don't even know him. All through, we hardly hear of NDLEA. Hardly. Yeah, you only remember that there's an organization called NDLEA if you are traveling in and out of the country. basically. Maybe once in a while you hear that they go to some Indian hemp farms and all those stuff like that. So it means that if that agency has been that quiet, it presupposes, rebuttably anyway, that most likely there must have been some level of compromises. This is a major buster, for example.
Yes.
We are talking of 27 kg.
27 kg of
I learned the
cocaine.
what is about 2 billion or thereabout in billions.
You know, this is...
It's, you know, but you see, what the most important thing I expect General Buba to execute now is to fish out the moles, the compromised, the corrupt officers in the agency as much as possible. Like he said, these were some of the things they did, and it worked out. No, it simply means that, look, those that have been corrupted in the agency, let the general do an internal audit of these people and fish out these people. Once those people are fished out, it will help him in his job.
Indeed.
But if they are not fished out, they will frustrate him.
Indeed. Chief Ikpemisho, how has the situation changed about Nigeria being... there was I think during your... when you were in service, you were telling us about Nigeria now being a hub for, you know, transporting of these illicit drugs. What is that situation like now?
Yeah, things went very bad. Things went very bad. Like I told you, the officers became very hopeless and helpless. No promotion. If you transfer them, their entitlements are not paid. So you have an officer staying like 10 years at a particular point. You have some, they have been commanders since they were recruited, and they are still commanders. So this maladministration has badly set NDLEA back. General Marwa has started very well. He's taking stocks now. He's somebody who will not move until his vision is clear. He's doing that Monday, Sunday, 7 days in a week, 24 hours.
I wanted to know, Chief, if Nigeria is still in a central position for moving illicit drugs, because how did Nigeria come to be a hub of illicit drugs, which you contended with in your times? I wanted to know if that situation still exists where, I mean, you think of Mexico, you think of all those foreign places. How did Nigeria come to be a hub in the movement of illegal drugs? In other words, they would have to come into Nigeria and then begin to distribute it around the world. Is that situation still the same?
I'm afraid we're back there, and that's why within a week, I'm afraid we're back there. That's why within a week, you heard of a seizure of over 20 kg at Abuja, Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, and again, about 27, 28 kg at Murtala Mohammed International Airport.
Okay.
I suspect, the investigations are still on, but I suspect that those who promised them safe landing, they couldn't play their role they were supposed to play. So they abandoned. That's why you see that the people were in trouble when they came in.
I see.
Investigations are on, and you have the chairman, chief executive, who will not cover up anybody.
Okay. Chief Ikpemisho, I'm sorry we're going to have to leave it here. I want to thank you immensely for making time to come and speak with us, and you know, at least alerting us to the fact that hope rising in our war against drug trafficking around the world, and Nigeria's part in it. Thank you very much, Chief Lanre Ikpemisho. Okay, now, Tony, well, we just have to keep our fingers crossed. He said something important there, which is the internal component. Those that have promised them safe landing abandoned them because Buba Murad Marwa is in town. I'm guessing it's not, everything is not like before. You were talking in relation to the service chiefs about a takeoff commitment. So they probably know the takeoff commitment is going to be very, very high. And so whatever deals, all deals appear to be off. We just hope we have more of that, right?
I think my own hope is basically to the extent that our institutions have to be strengthened above individual capacities, strengths and weaknesses.
Well, I'm going to have to leave it there too, Tony, because
yes,
we completely run out of time. But I think the point you're making,
of whosoever takes
institutions
over.
are the
Yes.
ones that have to be strengthened.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much, Tony Ofoye, as well, for being with us right through the program.
Thank you.
So that's our program today then. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. Happy New Month, by the way. And let me quickly remind, the COVID-19, anti-COVID-19 reminder. Do everything you can, please. Wash your hands, social distancing, and all the rest. You know what it is. I'll see you tomorrow, God willing.